Hello and welcome to Creator Toolbox. This is the show where we show ServiceNow developers how to use different tools that you have in your development toolbox. We're excited about today's show, but before we get into the topic, we're going to do some introductions. Chuck, why don't you go first?
Hey, hello everybody. My name is Chuck Tomasi, Senior Developer Advocate at ServiceNow. Been here since 2010, was a customer for a couple of years before that, and have been in this industry for close to 40 years now. So old man, new tricks.
All right, Preshit, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, hello everyone. My name is Preshit Doshi, and I'm one of the technical support architect at ServiceNow. I have been in the industry for almost close to 11 years now, and I have been in ServiceNow for the last 4 years.
Awesome. My name is Brad Tilton. I'm a senior developer advocate with the developer program here at ServiceNow. I've been developing on the platform since 2008 and been an employee for the last 5-ish years. And I'm excited about today's show. We are going to take a look at some ACL and I think business rule debugging as well. And I've seen some of Prashit's content, and he has some really cool stuff to show us. So I'm excited about it. Prashit, anything you want to say before we jump into it?
No, I think that is pretty much everything that I'm going to do here, and I have a bit of a theory and bit of a practical together, right? So I will not bore too much on the theory part. So I'll be switching in between. And that's all. I'll be covering the ACL basics, then business rule basics, and the troubleshooting techniques for both.
I
Awesome.
love this because it's one of those fundamental things some of us learned 13, 14 years ago or more in some cases. It's something we all know we need to do, but we may not have the best handle on how to execute and, like you said, how to debug. So this is gold right here. I get the feeling this will be one of our more popular episodes because it'll be something people can reference again and again and again.
Right. Thanks, Jack. So should I get started?
Yeah, let's go ahead and get into the screen share.
Sure. Is my screen visible?
It is now. Thanks, Earl.
Okay.
Earl's in the background doing that.
Great. So these are the topics that I'll be covering today for our ACL and business tool training and as well as the troubleshooting part of it. So let's get started with the ACL.
Prashit, can you put your PowerPoint in the presentation mode so we can see it like fill the whole screen?
Sure.
Beautiful.
Great.
Right. So let's talk about some of the basics of the ACL. So ACL is basically to allow or restrict the CRUD operations on ServiceNow table records, right? So ACL's basically execution is required to control access on the system resources. So consider the system resources as one of your important records or the database records which you want to preserve and prevent from the unauthorized access, and the access to those system records will be granted from the entry points, and the entry points would be the areas where you can write a script and access the system resources, right? So I have listed down some of the entry points like UI pages, lists and forms, jelly forms. You can write a inbound APIs where you can write a script to fetch the system resources, and that's when the power of ACL it comes into the picture, and it is a security mechanism that will decide how secure your data is. Then, before we design any ACL or debug any ACL issues, we need to understand what is an evaluation process, right? So this is the topic which is ignored most while debugging or creating ACLs in a customer development environments. So whenever user requests an access to an object, it will first check if there is any ACL matching to the record which is being accessed. If there is no ACL created for that specific table, then it will check the system property glide.sm.default mode equal to allow or deny. If it is set to allow, then if there is no ACL, it will directly grant access to that resource. If it is set to deny, then it will restrict the access. So this property is super important. If by any chance it is set to allow, then if you don't have any ACL on that table, all the data will be accessed by anyone. Then once this property check is done, yeah, Chuck, you're saying something?
It's set to deny by default, right? That was part of the high
Correct.
security plugin.
Yeah, that
Correct.
was like around 2009 or 2010, if I remember right.
Yeah, I think it was Aspen.
I was a customer when it defaulted to allow, and there was no property.
Yeah.
it was a nightmare chasing down and closing every door that was open.
Yeah. So that's when this property is very important. So whenever you think that there is unauthorized access, so first security check you should have is you check this property if it is set to allow or deny it. Then once you have the ACL defined on a specific table, it proceeds further on the evaluation process, and it checks certain conditions, or it evaluates the permission that would decide whether the user will get access to the resource or not. First part of the permission is the condition. If the condition defined in the ACL is matching to the record which is being accessed, if the condition matches to true, it will check if the script return in that particular ACL is returning true. If that script is also returning true, then it will proceed further to check if the user have required roles associated to the ACL. If any of these condition fails, then user will not be allowed to access the resource. If all these conditions are met, then user will get the access granted.
I thought it checked roles first.
No, it checks the condition first.
Okay, so it's condition, script, then roles.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, in the log, debug log, you would see that script as the last option, right? But the evaluation process is different. I mean, it checks the script, check the condition, and then the script, and then the roles.
Yeah, because
So
I thought
in the
when
evaluation process,
I know you're going to show this, but when you turn on debugging and you see the colored circles, red, blue, green, whatever, I thought the order of those circles was the order in which they were evaluated, but I could be remembering the order of those wrong.
Right. So this is basically from the documentation that we refer.
I will trust that. I'll trust you more than my aging memory.
Yeah.
Right. And then once this evaluation process is for the one ACL, but we need to understand how those ACLs get evaluated in the first place, right? Which ACLs will get applied for the specific resource. So whenever user requests an access, let's say I'm requesting access to a secret field on the incident record. Let's call it as a secret field, and then it will check if the ACL is matching to that particular field. So do I have a ACL created for incident.secret field? If I have a matching ACL, it will pass through. If there is no matching ACL for incident.secret field, it will proceed further on checking incident's parent table is task table. Is there a ACL for task.secret field? If there is no ACL for that, it will fall back to any table dot secret field, star dot secret field. If that ACL also not there, then it will check if incident dot any field ACL is created there. I mean table dot star. If that ACL is also not there, it will check task. I mean parent table, that is task dot star is created. If that ACL is also not there, it will try to match any table and any field star dot star ACL is present. If any of these conditions are not matching to that ACL, it will deny the access.
So it works its way up from very specific to very general. That's on the test, kids. I'm pretty sure you want to pay attention to this.
Yes, and then it applies the same logic for the table. So it will first try to evaluate the field level access, field level ACLs, and then it will go for the table level. So if the field level matching record is found, and then the evaluation process goes to the table record. If there is a table level ACL, that is an incident table ACL is present, then it will pass the condition. But if that is not present, then it will check if the task table access condition is present. If that ACL is also not there, it will check if the star ACL is present for the table. So there are two ACLs. One is on the table level, you define a ACL called table.none. And for field level access, you define table.star or a specific field. And if both evaluation process passes to true, then it will evaluate the ACL permissions in this manner. It will check for the condition script and then required roles. And then if it passes everything, then it will grant the access. Otherwise, it will deny the access.
So the question I always get is, if you have table.none, is that equivalent to table.star? If I say allow Preshit or someone with Preshit's role to get access to this record, does that automatically grant them access, whether it's read, write, create, delete, whatever, to all of the fields underneath?
Correct. So star is a basically a operator which says if there is no ACL, consider this ACL.
Okay.
So if I have a table.star, which means it will check if, let's say incident of star is the ACL, it will check incident table, and if there is any field on the incident table which does not have any specific ACL defined, then this ACL will be applied to that.
Okay. But if I don't have a incident.star, if I just have incident.none, does that cover me for all the fields?
No, then you will see the blank page. You won't get access to any field.
Okay, because when
consider this as a house.
Often when I create a new table, the system automatically creates 4 default permissions for me that are table.none, the read, the write, the create, the delete. And that seems to work. Should I be doing a table.star for each one of those as well, as requirements dictate?
Yes. So if there are star.star ACL as well, right? So if the table.star doesn't have, you don't have a table.star, and when you create the table, right, you would access the data using administrator access, right? So by default, the admin override is there, and admin gets access for star.star ACL.
That's a good point. Don't miss that admin override. It may or may not be masking things from you.
Correct. So if you want to define user level access, then you should have field level as well as the table level ACLs defined. And we create, so as by default, that property, global property like glide.sm.default mode is set to deny. We create ACLs to allow the access, and we don't. So basically, what happens is, I have seen during the investigation process and while interacting with many customers, what they think is, okay, this ACL is blocking the access, so if I disable this ACL, I should get the access. But it works otherwise. So if you want to access, you have to create a ACL in order to grant the access.
Yeah, that is a thing. Whenever I used to teach the admin class or something like that, it's always kind of a hard paradigm to understand at first, where ACLs are allowing access. They're not restricting access. So whatever you explicitly say is allowing, and they may be restricting some other things because of that, but you're specifically allowing.
Right, correct. So let me move on. So we have this. So now we have talked about the basic ACL evaluation. There is also a scoped ACL evaluation consideration. So in this, the major misconception that we have, I get many questions from the developers saying that I have a table, and if I don't have any scoped ACL defined on that, sometimes it executes the global ACL, sometimes it does not, right? So what is the criteria behind it? Whenever you define whenever you are having issues related to the scoped ACL logic, the global ACLs will only evaluate for a certain set of records, and there is a criteria for that. So as an example, if there is if user try to access a scope record, and there is a table that extends the sys metadata, right? And if there is no ACL configured for that application scope, and I have to highlight this, so the table extending sys metadata are the only records that are qualified for global level ACL evaluation, global scope evaluation. Otherwise, all other records won't get qualified for global level ACL evaluations. So first criteria should be if the table is extending to the sys metadata. If no ACL is configured for that in the application scope, first we need to check if the application administration is enabled for that scoped application. If the application administration is enabled, then we have to check if this glide.security.scoped administration.honor_global_ACL property is set to true. If this property is also set to true, then it will check if there are any global ACLs are configured to provide the table.none access. And if yes, then only it will be granting the access to that particular table. And then it also checks if there is a record in the ACL inheritance table. And if all those conditions are met, then only user will get access to the scoped application record using the global level ACL, global scope ACL. Otherwise, it will deny the access. And if user try to access a scoped record and the table does not extend to the sys metadata, then you need to have ACL configured in the application scope. Global ACLs will not evaluate. I know this is a bit of a complex logic that we have, but any questions around it?
Do you know when that Glide Security Scoped Administration Honor Global ACL, well, that's a mouthful, when that property was introduced? This is the first I've heard of it.
Right. So I will demonstrate this as well. So let me quickly show the demo for this one. Yeah. Okay. Is the instance visible?
It is. Could you make the font a little larger?
Yeah.
There you
Perfect.
go. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So first, whatever configurations I talked about, right? Let's see that. This is the scoped application, and the application administration checkbox is true. So I have configured the thing so that we can just walk through the demo. And then this is the scope ACL property, which is also set to true. And then this is the ACL configuration. These are the access control list that I have configured. So you can notice there are 3 global level ACLs, which are on the table level, and there are 3 on the scoped ACLs, which are table.star ACLs. And then we have this configuration table records. So now you could see the record in the configuration table. This table extends to the sys metadata table. And so let me get the inheritance table name.
Do you find that customers are often creating ACLs like there, if you stay there, because customers are creating ACLs for a scope table in global? Is that a common practice?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes they do. Sometimes, I mean, it's not a very best practice.
I was
But
going to
yeah,
say, yeah, that doesn't seem very safe because as you,
right.
Promote through the app repo or whatever, and you say, take my app, it's leaving behind these things that are in global. So you've got to remember that there's pieces outside of your scope, which doesn't seem smart. But okay,
Right.
for the purpose
Yeah.
of this demonstration, if this ever happens to you at home,
Yes. So it's all about troubleshooting, right?
you're the expert on that.
Okay, let me go here.
Yeah, I think that also comes into play if you're, especially before our the scoped before we allowed the scoped configuration, right? If you had like the HR or CSM and you're doing some development against it, maybe your shop does all your development in global. That could apply there.
Yeah, could be. Good point, Brad. Okay, so let me go back here. Right. So these are the tables. So I don't have a record here in this application inheritance configured right now. Okay. And let me impersonate as a able tutor.
Ah, good old Abel.
Then
I'm
see
surprised
the
nobody
record is
I'm surprised nobody picked up that handle on Twitter or Slack or something. That's just too easy. Oh, now you get no records to display rather than security has prevented you from seeing this.
correct. Correct. Because it is a problem with the ACL evaluation itself, right? I'll now let me go back and end the impersonation. Let me import the record here.
And as a piece of advice while you're doing that, you do not need to log out and log in to test ACLs. You simply need to refresh the page. So if you had a second browser as Able doesn't need to keep logging out. It's only if you apply a role to that user that changes their session, really. But the ACLs are on the
Correct.
system level. So time saver if you're debugging.
Right, right. I'm going to show one of the method that I use where I don't need to use another browser. So I'll just show you that. It just gives the it does the impersonation. It checks the records, and it will give me the log as well where it is failing. So I'll show that. Okay, now we have a record here created, and let me impersonate again. I'm just showing this just for sake of visibility. Otherwise, I'll show it via script as well. Now I'll go here. Now I'm able to access the record, right?
So that was because you added the application administration record?
Correct. Because application administration ACL inheritance, I have added that. And this is the configuration most of the people don't know, and they can't seem to figure out what is going wrong.
Oh, that's
So
interesting.
when
Yeah, I didn't know about that table either.
I didn't either.
right. So okay, let me now delete this record again.
Clearly, we got the right person on this show. On this topic.
Okay, let me go back.
There it is, people. Just when you keep saying, "Oh, Brad knows everything" or "Chuck knows everything," no, we don't.
I mean, I've done enough of these shows to where it's pretty obvious I don't know everything.
Yeah, watch Live Coding Happy Hour sometime.
We all every day learn something new, right? So
That's right.
And then that's when I call it done. So I've learned 2 new things. So see ya.
okay, so now I have deleted that, and let me show you the way I investigate these kind of issues, right? I will first go ahead and enable the debug security. Right. Okay. Now,
What do we call that window now? Is that just the debugger window?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a debugger window, and we have a script debugger as well.
Originally, it was
inside
the
this, right?
script debugger, but it's been lumped into so many things. There's a console debugger in there. There's lots of
Script
things.
tracer.
And if I remember right, Preshit, you still, when you turn on debugging for ACLs or you turn security, you turn on debugging for business rules, you still get it at the bottom of the standard lists and forms. Is that still correct?
Correct. That's
Okay.
correct. Okay. Now, I'll how to investigate without actually opening a new browser and then going through it. So I'll show you that. Okay. So I'm going to perform the same operation that we perform on the list view as a able tutor via script. So I'll go to the background script. Okay. Now, I'm going to query this table with the glide record secure. So again, the glide record secure, we use the glide record secure to evaluate the ACLs against those tables. If we use the glide record, it does not check the ACLs. So
Good
let's execute this.
distinction.
Yeah, so we're impersonating and then just doing a glide record secure check.
Right. So you could see the record not found, right? And now I want to see what was the ACL, what was the log that was created, right? So I'll just copy this URL, open a tab, create it here, and then monkey.do. So it's basically a non-existing UI page,
All right.
right? And I could see this is the ACL. So it is a gray check mark, right? So it is not evaluated. Correct. So now it doesn't say that you have to create a record in the ACL inheritance. That is the thing that you should know as a product knowledge. But the access is blocked because of this ACL and it is not evaluated. Right.
Now, real quickly, this is the first time some people may have seen this. Green is good, red is bad. Gray, you said, is not checked. What is the light blue?
This one is a cached ACL. So it is evaluation from the cache.
Okay, but we can still see it failed because the big red X as that parent is right above it. Okay.
Right. Now I have not switched the session to anyone, right? So I have impersonated in the script and I have unimpersonated in the script itself, right? So now I will go ahead and import that record back again. Where is the table? Back.
Uh-oh.
Is it that third tab?
No, I think here only. Okay. I will import this. Right.
Oh, he's doing the cooking show thing. He baked some ACLs earlier in the oven.
Yeah. I prepared the demo for all the test cases that I'm going to show. So yeah, I'm very well prepared.
Because watching people type ACLs is oh so exciting.
Right. Let me execute the same script again. And now you could see that record found, right? So, and in this here, I'll just refresh this page. And you could see the access is granted now, all the green check marks. Right, so that's how we investigate ACLs without having multiple browser window open. And you can create a very simple scripts and impersonate it within the script and just see if the access is granted or not.
Don't forget to unimpersonate. I've done that before.
Yeah.
Right, and that's a very valid point. So, Chuck, should we show the glide record secure versus glide record execution as well?
Yeah, we can do that real quick. We do have an older Tech Now episode on that. I think it was episode 8 or one of the early ones.
Okay, so I have just modified it to the glide record here, and I will again go back and delete this record.
Yeah, in effect, this is like running a system. It says, I don't care. I'm just going to do what you asked me to do.
Okay. Right. And now, ideally, we have deleted the record, so we should not, the able tutor should not have access to the record. And this is the glide record I'm using versus the glide record secure. And I'll just run the script, and I could see the record found. So it does not. It is unsecure way, and we should not use glide record while querying the sensitive data. And that's the tip for the developers. Right. And also there is one more way of checking. I mean, if you want to use the glide record and then you can also have a ACL check within the script, and this is that script. So in here, I'm doing the glide record to the same table, but I'm checking if gr.canRead is true. If yes, then perform the action. If no, then you can perform something else or give the error message saying that you don't have access to the record. And you would see the use of can read and can write or can delete in most of the scoped applications, because it is a best practice from the development team that they try to secure all the scripts for the unauthorized access, and they use this can read or can write methods in the script. And it is very important to investigate these scripts, and specifically in the scoped application. Earlier, this we have created a special script include that I will be sharing now. In the scoped application, you won't be able to impersonate as the session.online impersonate. So we have to create a script include. We have to write a code there, and the call that script include will be in the global scope, and we will call that script include from the scoped business rule. And that's how we are able to impersonate for the scoped application itself. So I'm going to this scoped application here, and I'll run the script. Now you could see user don't have access to the record. This is, yeah.
So the difference with this one is that we're doing a normal glide record, so it does find a record, and then we're using that can read check to see if the user has read access. So this is just a different way of doing the check without using glide record secure.
Yes, correct. And in the most of the out-of-box applications, you would see that they follow this practice of using the can read rather than using the glide record secure itself.
So we should take these examples and stick them in the code snippets repo that we have going, so people can look them up if they want.
Oh, I like that.
Right. Also, people will get the question how I am able to impersonate this here in the scoped application, and how I have implemented that, right? So let me show that quickly. I will share the code as well. So this is impersonate me script include in the global scope, and I have created these two functions, impersonate user and unimpersonate user. It eventually does the same call, session.online impersonate and session.online unimpersonate. What this method does in the global scope, we are just calling them from the scoped API call. So in this scope, ACL specific application scope, I am calling the global ACL here, and that's the global script include here, and that's how I'm able to impersonate in the scope in the specific scope. So previously, investigation on the HR, human resource application, or all those scoped applications, right, where we deal with sensitive data, it was very difficult to investigate those cases because there is a lot of can read, can write logic in the script includes. And so we have to convert them in the background script and then run it. And that's when we actually use these APIs to impersonate and check as a user to what resources they have access and to what resources they don't have access, and then we can debug it from there.
So you've got a pass-through script include that allows your scoped apps to access that global-only impersonate API.
Absolutely, yes, correct.
But the thing to remember is that script include is outside of the scope. It's in global.
It is also global. Yeah, the difference is it has the allow access from all scopes option checked.
Correct. Yeah. All application scopes, correct. Yeah. So this is basically a troubleshooting tool that we have designed. So it helps us to impersonate in the scope.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So this is one of the technique. Now let me show. So now we know how to enable the logs, how to see the logs without opening browser windows, and how can we investigate the issues. But if you see this log, I mean, now we have very simplified test case, but in a real world scenario, you would see very huge log for the ACL, and then you have to scroll through down to see which ACL is failing, right? And that's when, let me delete this record again. Okay, it's already deleted. Right. Okay, now I want to see which ACL exactly blocking the access, and I want to print that only, right? So I want to reduce the noise from the log. How can I do that? And that's when we use this method. So I'm going to execute this background script. This does glide session debug dot enable security underscore refuse. So this parameter will only print the ACLs which are blocking the access.
Hmm.
Oh, wow.
More learning today.
You can stay back, Chuck.
I'm going to be drinking by 9 a.m.
Right. So I have disabled debugging. Let me execute this.
Brad, we must have missed a TOI or something somewhere, because this is invaluable. How does this get by?
I don't think it likes your quotes.
Oh, if you copy from a
PowerPoint.
PowerPoint or a Word document, sometimes the quotes get really nasty.
Yeah.
Correct. Right. So let me execute this. Now, yeah, we are all set.
Hooray!
And then let me go back. Where is my glide record secure? Here. Copy this.
So glide session debug. We're going to have to dig into that a little further.
I think we may be seeing a glide session debug blog come out soon.
Right.
My first question is, do we have it documented?
I'm sure someone will tell us.
Right. So let me impersonate this now. And I could see record not found. Mm-hmm. Let's see what kind of log it is printing now. You see, all the noise is reduced, and only the ACL which is blocking the access.
That's nice. And I want to point out that the ACLs are clickable. So you can click those links and go right to the ACL that's causing the problem.
Yes.
Yeah, this is especially helpful, I'm guessing, for like incident or some table that has, just a crazy amount of ACLs on it.
Or you've got, query business rules that are, you may be accessing this record multiple times in one operation.
Correct. So that's how I just get to know, which ACL is failing within less. I mean, just executing one script and just perform the steps to reproduce, and it highlights you which ACL is failing, other than reduce all the other noise from the log.
I like the SNUtil suggestion. I didn't find anything either on monkey.do.
Yeah.
I love how every developer or troubleshooter has their own naming scheme of what they use for dummy names.
Yeah.
We now know Preshit is monkey.do.
Yeah. It suits. And let me go back. Okay. So this one. Now here, if let's say your issue is intermittent, right? And I don't know, intermittently I'm not able to access few records, or user is not able to access the records, right? And I want to know what is happening around that time when the issue is reproducible. I can set these. So it works the same way: glide session debug.enable, security refuse, and comma true. If this parameter is set and you execute this script, then it will start printing your ACL log into the node log. So whenever issue happens and customer gives you the timeline, then you can go in the specific timeline and see the log for the specific transaction. If what was the ACL evaluation that time. and which ACL actually caused the issue. Does this make sense?
So this is, you can come in after the fact and enable this and it'll go back and print, or this is something you enable and then from there forward it'll print the extra logs. I'm not quite following on this one.
So this one, you enable it and it will print in the node log. So we maintain the server-side logs, right, for customers. So for 21 days, we maintain the server-side logs. In that server-side logs, we print those ACL evaluations.
Okay.
Right. So if customer is reporting an intermittent issue, this is the property this is the script that helps in enabling that capture of ACL evaluation into the server side log. And then once we know that, okay, customer XYZ have faced this issue, then we can go to that log on the specific time and check if what was the ACL evaluation during that time. So this is to capture the ACL log in the server side log.
I was doing a quick check. I did not find any documentation on Docs or Developer about glide session debug. Is it safe to assume there's also a disable method?
If you disable all, then
Okay.
it will disable everything.
Gotcha.
Right. Correct.
We have an opportunity to improve our documentation.
Yeah. So these are the tricks that we use for investigating a tricky ACL related issues.
This could almost be a CreatorCon session, Brad.
Yeah.
So we have completed our ACL discussion. Let me go back to the next topic, that is a business rule. Chuck and Brad, do you have anything related to ACL that we need to cover, or are we good to move on to the new topic?
Let's move on. We're coming down to the 15-minute mark.
Yeah, I think that's great, and it's probably okay if we run over a little bit. But we will. I do want to just tell everybody we will do some follow up with the ACL stuff. So the debugging scripts and some of the glide session debug. You'll probably see a blog on some of that at some point.
Right. Cool. So let's talk about the basic of business rule. So it is nothing but a object that we can use to execute the server side scripts. And I mean, if you are a developer, so this is like a basic concept where you can execute business rules on a before or after or async. Async is a asynchronous execution of the business rule. It will not hold down to a specific transaction, but it will asynchronously execute and then provide the required output. How to troubleshoot the business rules? So again, this topic is also where a lot of people don't know the tricks that are available within the platform. So most of the troubleshooting techniques that I'm going to show here are available in the platform, and we just need to explore it. And let me show a couple of. And there is one more topic that I'm going to cover is the magic of SQL debug detailed log. That how that helps in the investigating business rules. Okay, so let me show my screen again. So for this particular demonstration, okay, let me go back. Okay, this is my script include. I'm going to uncomment this code. So I have created this function to update I'm passing the table name in this particular script include function, and I'm updating that record with the property value called change.dac. So the reason I have wrote this kind of crazy code is at times people just go to the business rule and script includes list view and try to filter the result to understand which business rule or which script include could cause this issue. And if someone have wrote a very complex code and they have references for the specific variables or the system properties, you won't be able to find the exact business rule which could cause the issue. right? So it is better to learn the investigation methodology rather than just filtering the business rules or script include and trying the luck.
Yeah, I think Andrew did something like this when we first came out with Script Debugger. He had something buried in a property and went, oh my gosh, you'd never find it by doing a search on the code, in the script field. But if you walk through the Script Debugger stack, you go, oh, that's where the problem actually is. So, go ahead.
Absolutely. So let me save this. And so there are 2 business tools that I have created for this demonstration. First, I'll set this to true. So this business rule, it just call that script include function and just pass the parameter called change underscore request. And then right. So this is the property that I have created. I'm going to change this to Toolbox test. Save. Now, as per our code, this particular change request I will disable the log.
I was gonna say, you're still debugging your ACLs over there.
Right. So now I'll enable the debug business rule. So those who don't know what is the debug business rule versus debug business rule details, right? I don't need this one. So the debug business rule details is it'll give you the log where let's say you are setting some fields on the form via business rule, then it will print what values you're setting to which field on the log itself. That's the difference versus the debug business rule. Now I will this change. Okay. So you see the current short description for this particular change request is this is test change update, right? And whenever user update an incident record, any incident record for that matter, they see that there is an update happening on the change request. And this particular issue, I have recreated this scenario using one of the practical issue that I have solved, where customer was not knowing what is the source of update on the change request. Okay, so I just update this test, save. Now this one, I have updated the incident, and here you see the created toolbox test. The short description of the change request is updated. Now, if that business rule, now that we know what business rule is we have created, but if that business rule is executing on a specific condition that it will occur for, let's say, 10 records from 100 records, 100 change requests, it will be very difficult to understand what exactly is updating that record. And if you can't reproduce the issue on demand, then you cannot investigate this using session debug logs. So first, I will tell you how to investigate using session debug logs, and then the next step I will show you if issue is not replicable, how can you still track down the root cause for the issue. Okay. So here I have updated. Let's in the session debug log. I'll just search for executing before update. Yeah. So this is the one.
Sometimes it's easier to search on the name of the business role.
Correct, but we will not know, right, while investigating what will be the name.
Oh, that's true. And a quick note about the notation on there. You see some left arrows, you see some right arrows, you see some triple equals. The left arrow is when it starts running the business rule. The right arrow is when it exits the business rule. And everything in between is what it's doing. And sometimes they're not next to each other. You may see
Right.
starting a business rule that then kicks off another business rule, or there's a lot that can happen. And this is a great insight to understanding, particularly for integrations. If you have that checkbox on your transform map that says run business rules, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah. Right. So I think I missed this one. So correct. If you see, correct. After you see that there is a executing before update business rule for the change request. Exactly just above that, you would see our business rule name, which is actually updating that record, right? So this is a one way of finding which business rule is causing the update. If you can reproduce this issue on demand, let's say if you cannot reproduce this issue on demand, then what is the way? I'll just go back and change this to testing again and save it. So as you rightly said, right, Chuck, you could see this equal to triple equal to means it is skipping the business rule. If it is a double equal to and the greater than mark, then it is executing that particular business rule. And this less than mark and double equal to is it has finished the execution. Okay, so now I have changed the short description again, and now I'm going to enable one of the business rule called stack trace. So this is the code for any business rule stack trace, and you can keep it enabled, but just it will create a lot of logging. So you need to be very mindful about the time frame that you are going to keep it enabled. So you can create this kind of code and enable it in the environment and just keep it keep monitoring if the issue is happening again. And let's say I have enabled this business rule, and then I will reproduce this issue one more time. Say this. Right now I have reproduced the issue again. All I need to do is I just need to copy the change request SID and go to script log statements here and then put equal to sysid. Here is our stack trace of what happened, what update, what code was executed during that update. And you could see for stack trace, you read it from bottom to top, right? So I hope everyone is aware. So we have clicked on this UI action, right, on the incident record. And then once we click on that UI action, this particular script was executed. And this script called this particular script include, and then it updated the record. And this last syscript is our stack trace business tool, which we created.
You are way better at reading those than I am.
Right. Should I is it visible properly in the recording? Should I zoom a bit?
It's
I think
I
it's
don't think the
alright.
font size matter is going to matter with my comprehension of what's on
Yeah.
the screen.
So let me open one of the records so that we will have better clarity for the audience as well.
I think when an average developer looks at this and they see that in the log, they went, "Oh, something really bad happened." Probably the last thing I changed, but let's undo that.
Yeah, I was also in the same category, Chuck. So
we could probably have an episode on how to read stack traces.
Yeah. So let me go back to our syscript.list. That's nothing but the business tools and sysid. And here is our business tool which we created, right? So this is the business tool which was executed as per our logs. And this is the script include. You can also see the line number, which line number was executed during this execution, right? So line number 15 was executed. And I can just show you that. Right, here is our script include. And line number 15, you see, it gives the exact line number where the issue happened.
That's pretty handy.
And then you scratch your head going, well, I've used GR update 1 million times. What's wrong with this one?
Right. And so we have seen, investigating it via business tool and the stack trace business tool now, right? Now I'll show you one handy trick that you don't actually need to create all this stack trace business tool. I mean, you have to create the stack trace business tool if the issue is not replicable on demand. But if issue is replicable and you want to identify quickly what code is executing for particular transaction or particular update, I'll show you that method as well. Let me disable the stack trace business tool. There are too many tabs open right now. Okay. Right. And this is a last test.
That's an optimistic developer. I don't need any more testing.
And here is our homepage. So I'll just disable all of the logging and debug SQL detailed. Okay. So this method, now I'm going to again recreate the issue. I'll save this.
Debugging the SQL gets pretty deep.
Yeah, it's so for example, this one is the basic table, right? So we don't need to go to storage alias table and understand the alias for which the query is executing. But consider this is the incident table and the update is happening on the change table, right? So I have to just know what is a parent of change table, which is a task table now. And I have to search for update task set short description equal to create a toolbox test, right? So this is my query. Correct. And if I click on this plus icon, here is my stack trace. And now I can know from where this particular update was initiated. This is the business tool. This is the UI action which was clicked. This is the business tool which was executed. it executed line number 1, line number 4, and then it went to the script include. It executed line number 15, and then it actually updated the change request. Now I have the entire code walkthrough. I mean, I don't need to go through the business rule log and find out what all business rules were executed.
Didn't know there was a stack trace hiding underneath.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Right. So with that, I think I have covered all the debugging topics. If there are any questions on the chat, we can answer that.
All right, that's perfect timing. It is right at 11. Well, for me, it's at the hour. So thanks, Preshit, for joining us. We will most likely have a follow-up blog post where we show some of the scripts that were run and show some of those APIs that we ran and explain what they're doing. But this was really helpful. I know I learned a lot. I'm sure Chuck learned a lot. And if you were watching, I'm sure you also learned a lot. So we're just about out of time. But either of you guys have one last thing before we
Real
go?
quick announcement, Tech Now on the 26th of October, sign up, devlink.sn/TN91reg. I believe that's episode 91. I'll figure it out tomorrow and go, oh, oops. But Jason McKee is going to be doing a breakdown of his, it's not Liquor Bot, it's the Smart Kegerator. The Smart Kegerator, you'll see everything from Arduino stuff and Raspberry Pi things communicating with ServiceNow. It was present at Knowledge 19 at the CreatorCon exhibit, and you may have even partaken of the beverages that were being dispensed. But the idea is you can use ServiceNow as a supply chain tool and monitor through metric base and whatnot if we're going to be running low on something so that you don't run out. Here's a classic example. You're at an amusement park, and they have popcorn machines around the park, and those things are money-making machines. Popcorn is really cheap to create and has a huge net profit. And if you run out of popcorn, you're losing money because you're not selling popcorn. So they want to know, hey, are we running low on popcorn? Go fetch more before we run out. Same kind of thing, only we're doing it with beer. So look forward to that next Tuesday, 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern time, or whatever that is. We will have that up in a few days on demand on our community YouTube channel. So looking forward to seeing that and learning what's behind the seemingly simple front end of drinking beer. Anything else, Brad?
No, I think that sounds great. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thanks to Preshit for coming on and blowing our minds a little bit. And we will see everybody next week.
Absolutely.
Take care.
It was a great pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye.